Hey everybody, this is Paul Saxberg here with my Video Designers Log number 2 for the DFW Nerd Night competition for 2015. I'm going to rush through this because time's a ticking and I got two things I want to cover. So first of all is the official unboxing because my kit just arrived. And so this will be my official proof that I'm using the kit they sent me instead of the one I had at Falcon last year. So we're going to dive right into that. I'm not going to check the things in detail. I'm just going to comment on anything that happens to be different than what I was expecting. And we got here a little letter, and I think I will check that actually afterwards. And of course, this looks pretty much as expected. I have got some design updates. I've changed my direction since last I spoke to any of you guys on the internet, and so on and so forth. So that's what part 2 is going to be about. It's going to be describing what I've done so far and the shift back to, yay, the reverse deck draft. Because that was some ideas to make it work, and I really wanted to make J.R. Honeycutt happy since he liked that idea. He is in fact influencing me as a designer. Alright, so this looks like pretty much the same stuff in here. I know all the goodies are going to be in this bag, so let's open that up here and see what we got happening. Okay, set that aside. Discs, I got blue gems, it looks like. That's the gems I got to work with. Those are the same, those are the same. I have a very similar miniature, but now it's purple instead of blue. Looks like some sort of a cleric or something, so that's possibly useful here. Looks like my coin is smaller than the ones I had in the other kits. That's denomination of 1. Actually, I've got 2 of them. This one also has a denomination of 1. That's interesting. And then I also have a Mice and Mystics meeple as expected, and the same other bits and pieces. Looks like the same tuck boxes in the same rule book. Good, so I don't have to make any major design shifts as I didn't predict I was going to, but you never know what sort of curveballs life will throw you. And we have a nice little signed official note from JR himself, reminding of all the fine print of the contest. I'll go through that in more detail on my own time. In the meantime, wrote myself notes, kind of ADD. In the meantime, first of all, yes, I'm very, very excited to say that it's JR himself made me think about going back to the reverse draft concept. I had originally rejected it because when I played it with my fellow designers here in Calgary, we've got a weekly meetup that we do. It just wasn't very fun. There was a lot of maintenance, a lot of doing this and doing that and doing the other thing, and it just wasn't very entertaining, and it wasn't very tactical. But I think some of that was the sample cards I made up as well didn't function very well, and so they kind of ruined the playtest experience. But I do most of my game design work actually while I'm at my day job. My day job I've been at for 4 years now, and it's mostly fairly manually repetitive. I've got it all down to the point where I can do it very automatically. And so part of my brain is focusing on the work, and it doesn't really need the rest of my brain unless something unusual is going on and I have to fix a problem or face a challenge. And so the rest of my brain is off designing games or whatever, creative challenges are facing my life at the moment. So while I was at work today and yesterday, I actually had come up with a completely alternate concept for the game that didn't use the reverse draft. But still based on area control and still based on concealed boxes. Whenever you played a card, you put it into one of the boxes, and the boxes were all face down. And then you'd pick up a couple of the boxes and put them onto the table and switch them back and forth, like is done in the game Masquerade for some of the tiles. And this would produce a sort of a way to mess with area control so that you could keep track of where the boxes were, your opponents couldn't. But then they were doing the same thing back to you, but then some of the cards would let you look at which box you were playing with. And that idea may still have some promise. I actually really like the resource mechanic I came up with for it. That'll probably go into a game somewhere. But it's not as exciting and it's not as elegant as the concept of the reverse draft. So the reverse draft stayed in my brain once JR commented on it. And then it finally collided with a couple of other things. My last video I was wearing a Firefly shirt. Firefly, of course, is my favorite ever TV franchise. And that, all my ideas are always based on collisions of this and that and the other thing. So that's one of the things that collided in my brain. The other thing that collided is possibly my favorite board game is Galaxy Trucker. And Galaxy Trucker, for a couple of different reasons, popped into my brain. One of which is it's a multi-stage game. And I've always been fascinated by games that you play in more than one stage. And and one of the stages, of course, is the cards are resolved. And the cards that are resolved are a deck of cards. So what does the reverse draft produce? It produces 3 decks of cards, or maybe 2 decks of cards, depending how many people are playing, or could possibly produce more, but it would require more components than are in this box. And I thought, okay, well, what if you were playing Galaxy Trucker, and instead of having a random deck that you're going through, you have a deck that was reverse drafted. You could play the disasters on your opponents. Be like, okay, here's deck A, and it's coming to me, and I know I'm player A, so this is the deck I'm going to resolve. So I'm going to put something good into it. But when player C's deck comes around, I'm going to put pirates into it. Or I'm going to put asteroids into it, or whatever. So I know what menaces he's facing, but I don't know what menaces I'm facing. But then you mess around with the cards that you're allocating, so that sometimes you're forced to put disasters into your own deck, sometimes you're forced to put good things into other people's decks. There's your game, right? And so this combined with Firefly, and I've got all these lovely archetypical images of smugglers in my head now. And so this is going to be a Smuggler's Run kind of game, probably with a science fiction theme, where you're putting different types of goods onto your ship. And some of them are legitimate, and some of them are contraband. And there's going to be types of menaces that can face you, and some of them might be law enforcement, and if law enforcement faces you and you've got contraband and you haven't got whatever the proper steps are in place to hide it or protect it, you lose that. And so the game will be scoring points based on what happens when you finally unbox your deck and resolve it, and the good things happen and the bad things happen and so on and so forth. Because in the reverse draft, although the draft itself was fiddly and not particularly good, that particular moment of unboxing it and scoring it, that was interesting. And, oh, pardon me, I'm shaking my table here. I'm doing this upstairs on a coffee table instead, to see how this way works. But yes, there's my little ADD tangent. The moment of unboxing it and scoring it was like stage 2 of the game. And actually, one of my fellow designers, Matt Tolman, he's designed Undermining and is co-designer of the recent release Super Motherload from Roxy League Games, both of which are Canadian Game Design of the Year award-winning games, so I recommend checking them out. But he's the one who commented, this feels like the whole reverse drafting and scoring feels like an auxiliary mechanic. It didn't feel like a primary mechanic. But I feel like if it mirrors the sort of game structure of Galaxy Trucker, it can be both the primary mechanic and have the fun scoring that the playtest reverse draft had. So that's my plan, and I've got the night mostly free to myself, although I do have to do a bunch of chores as well. So I'm going to go make that right now. And thanks for listening. Thanks again for supporting the DFW Nerd Nighters. The more I learn about these guys, the more impressed I am. So, for anyone not familiar with them, check out the charity events they run, both in Dallas-Fort Worth and around the country. I think this is something that should really come to Canada. I'm interested in that. Let's make that happen. As for now, though, I'm signing off to go make a game. Talk to you next time.